I'm standing brazenly tall. For Canada. Ron James here. Let's keep her going. Proudly stand together in the land of 2 4s and 5 0s and butter tarts and buy Canadian. Check the labels. Make sure it's made in Canada. And let's just give her. Shop as if your country depends on it. Keep your money in Canada for Canada.
What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1644 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Building Toronto's Skyline, a podcast and book from Nick Iones, sponsored by Fusion Corp Construction Management Inc. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Joining me today is Cleave Anderson, Nichol Robertson, and Mike Boguski. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
To be here.
Yeah, nice to be here. Welcome.
Yes.
Cleve's already cracked open a Great Lakes beer over there. How's it tasting, Cleve?
Very good.
It's a Canuck Pale Ale you got there. Boguski just cracked open a Hot Pop. Can I get you anything, Nichol?
No, I'm great. Thank you.
You're good. You're good. Can't wait to have this discussion, but Mike, you're a bit late today. Can I call you Mike?
Yeah, Mike is great because you're Mike. We're Mike together.
We are Mike together.
Mike squared, Mike together. We can just keep going on that.
You were a bit late today, Mr. Boguski. See, I switched it to Mr. Boguski. Why are you late?
I'm late because I'm here with my esteemed bandmates. We have a band called West of Jane. We're this very cool sort of 60s instrumental group. We do it all from sort of Lawrence Welk right up to the Doors. And I really wanted to take up this opportunity to do a live presentation of our little trio. But the full rig is I have a huge Gibson G101 organ and a Fender Rhodes piano bass. Couldn't fit it into your studio, so I spent the morning trying to program my archaic 1997 Roland JV90 to sound like this amazing sounding rig that is the cornerstone of our band. And I just kept like banging my head against the wall. I couldn't figure out how to transpose one instrument, and I was just like on.
Well, that's a good excuse, actually.
Yeah, but I got it going. I got it going. We're good. We're ready to rock.
Okay, so just how big is it? You got a measuring tape here, by the way. Everybody gets a Ridley Funeral Home measuring tape.
Nice.
But how big is this? The keyboard you're going to use here?
I don't know. I'm going to let my bandmates answer that because I'm usually the one who's got to roll it in and set it up. So why don't they bear the load and talk about the size?
I'm not
of the
going to comment on the dimensions, but the weight of it is.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But see, Nichol always says that
big, too.
the commitment to the rig is part of the whole experience of coming to West of Jane because people sort of like will stare at the instrument and be like, oh, what is that? And what's the sound it makes? It's a really a visual thing. Wouldn't you agree on that, Nichol? There's a visual component.
Yeah, there's a visual component. You know, obviously the audio component. It makes a sound that nothing else can actually make. And the commitment of lugging giant gear to gigs when it's important is huge. And I think it makes a much better audience experience.
Like, I feel I could have a bike against the wall, but I could move the bike to another room, and maybe you could have set it up down here? What do you think?
No, there's no way the actual West of Jane Gibson organ could appear. Like,
right.
A little funny story about that whole organ. See, the genesis of West of Jane really happened during the pandemic. I got a call from Paul's Boutique, which is a great vintage instrument store in Kensington Market. And Paul called me up and he said, listen, there's this old Gibson organ that's been sitting in here. It belonged to the late James Gray. And apparently, James had taken it to, I can't remember who was doing the repairs, but James unfortunately passed away very suddenly. I think what was it, 2013? I'm not sure exactly when, but this instrument was sitting in the repair shop. It was John Fletcher, that's who it was. And James's sister was called to say, like, you got to get this instrument out of my repair shop because, we got to do something with it. So she was trying to sell it at Paul's, and I'm like, I have no interest to buy this instrument. Paul's like, oh, you got to buy it. I'm like, why? He's like, well, because you're the current keyboard player on Blue Rodeo. I'm like, so I don't want it. I don't want it. And then Glenn Melcham was like, man, you should buy it. And I'm like, didn't you guys not like the sound of it when James played it on the Are You Ready album? But I did buy it, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with this thing? Because there's no gigs. So I got to call 2 people I know that are eccentric enough to want to come on board with this endeavor. So there's really only 2 guys, in maybe the world, that would be into it, and these are the gentlemen sitting beside me.
Cleave and Nichol. So this is west of Jane. It's appropriate then we're chatting west of Jane.
Yeah, absolutely. But see, the thing is, I'm a piano player and accordion player, sure, but really, when you play organ, it's a whole different bag. You have to play the bass with your left hand, the melody with your right, and it's we have no bass player, so we it's set up exactly like Ray Manzarek of The Doors, who I actually had a cool interview with, much like we're doing now, when I was 16. That's another story. But when we started, I was so terrible at this new technique, and I kept telling the guys, oh, I shouldn't do this, I'm sorry, I suck, and they're laughing because I think they enjoyed seeing me flounder. And then we all sort of came together in the pandemic, and we were just hashing out these arrangements, and my studio was actually in my mom's basement, so it was very funny because my mom would sort of bring us drinks, and it would be like being in high school again, literally, but now. So we slowly came together, we got the arrangements, and then it started to pick up, and I think we got a bit of a buzz. What do you think, guys?
I think so.
Yeah, I hope so. I believe so.
Nice.
But I'm just going to comment on, being a drummer, a bass player's rhythm section, and everybody's concerned whether the rhythm section's in the pocket, but it's a delight playing with Mike's left hand. It's different than a bass player.
Totally.
It's a different feel. It's a little more fluid, perhaps, and I like to play like that. So,
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
very enjoyable.
There's something about trios too that are just, I don't know, Nichol, what do you think? Trios are different than.
Yeah, I love trios. I think in a trio, that's sort of the maximum number of people you can do. So that everybody can have a speaking voice almost all of the time. Once you get above a trio, you need to kind of split up into groups and take a backseat. But as a trio, you can always have a voice, and duos also you can do that in. But I think our trio, if you were just playing organ and we had a bass player, it would be an entirely different
Yeah, it
thing.
would be, yeah.
It's built on the fact that it's us 3 in a trio.
It really is 3 voices
Yeah.
as
for
one.
sure.
And I've never really experienced that. I've actually never really experienced starting and being in a band. In Blue Rodeo, obviously there was 3 keyboard players before me. I'd come in, and there's a huge history and band dynamic that I had to sort of adjust to. Other bands, it's similar, but this is the first time we've started a band. It's the 3 of us. We all have veto power. And it's been a really positive, wonderful experience, I got to say.
Yeah.
So we're going to be treated to a live performance from west of Jane in about an hour. Is that right?
I can't wait for that.
And it's gonna. And again, I know we talked about. I think there's some discussion. Hey, you'll set up beforehand. You'll test it all out. And I think I was like, no. Like in about an hour, I'll just start vamping and I'll describe what's going on, and we'll just see how you all come together, and we'll do it. This is rock and roll, guys.
Yeah, it's totally rock and roll.
Right, man.
Now, I get an hour now to do my thing here. So I have in the basement right now a current member of Blue Rodeo, as Michael Boguski mentioned. You are, what would you say you do for Blue Rodeo, Mr. Boguski?
Keyboards, piano and accordion, and organ, yeah, all of those 3. More accordion now than when I started, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm trying to get the accordion represented, and it's become this whole thing in the band now, which is really fun to play.
And in a moment, I'll remind people that Michael Boguski's been here before. You were never in the basement, though. This was during the COVID-19 pandemic. We did a backyard episode. Do you remember this fondly, Michael?
Yeah, it was squelt. Like the heat was off the charts. And
July 2021.
yeah, I sat up on I believe it was your back deck.
Yeah.
And I did I brought one of my archaic 90s, 80s keyboards and I set it up to sound like Weather Report. And I did a Weather Report version of Diamond Mine. Yeah.
So I'm gonna I'll let the listenership know if they want to hear, because I mentioned I have a current member of Blue Rodeo, because I also have a former member of Blue Rodeo in the basement, Cleave.
And founding member as well.
And that's key. No, a founding member of Blue Rodeo. So I have Blue Rodeo questions, and I am very excited that Nichol Robertson is down here.
I've never even heard of Blue Rodeo.
Is it true, Nichol? We'll get to you. We're going to talk to all three of you, and I have some audio loaded up. But Nichol, you are a Mimico native, is that, or at least you live there now?
Yeah, I grew up in Port Credit, Mississauga, but I currently live in Mimico for the past decade.
I'd like to say I also live in Mimico.
Do you?
Yeah, I live at Palace Pier.
Okay, so two Mimico guys. We're in New Toronto now. You recognize you've left.
Oh yeah,
Mimico,
it's very
okay.
different here.
And Cleave is originally a Etobicoke too, and this factors into the name of the band. So we were trying to figure out, like, what are we going to name ourselves? And we're all sort of West Enders, so we came up with West of Jane, like West of Jane Street.
What was your neighborhood,
Jane
Cleve?
Street. Etobicoke, Islington, North Islington.
Like Rexdale?
Rathburn. No, not that far.
Okay. Like Central.
Rathburn Road, Islington Avenue. Can you picture that?
I
like
totally
the-
can picture
Rose
that.
Thorn
Hippling
Park.
Avenue.
I went to Power with this guy, okay? I can
Like,
picture
yeah.
that.
There's
We
so
were-
much Central Etobicoke representation in this room right now. We could just talk about that, and Mississauga. We'll just annex Mississauga because that's the style of the time now. We just annex things that.
Well, I
want
played
to
off
be
the top.
part.
I played a PSA, pro bono, because the company that puts it together is called Pro Bono, and it features another FOTM named Ron James. And I played it off the top thanks to Mike Ocklemore, another Mike. There's a lot of Mikes. I don't know if you guys noticed, but thanks to Mike Ocklemore for sending that my way. I proudly played it. Maybe we'll touch on what's going on in this crazy world. I feel like the more chaos there is in this world, the more we need music, we need art, we need you guys.
Oh yeah, without
No
a doubt.
argument here. Yeah.
No argument.
See, we couldn't ride the chaos during our last episode of Chaos, which was the pandemic. It's just, there's
Right.
so much chaos. It's like I can't keep track. But our wings were clipped during Chaos 1.0 because unless it was coming onto your back deck and playing
Which was
Weather Report,
amazing.
you know. But now I feel the time is for the musicians to bring people off their phones into clubs to join hands, hug each other, and just get into the music and feel the love because it's too divisive right now.
Well, like Madonna said, get into the groove, baby. Okay. So that was July 2021 when Michael came and visited my backyard. It was episode 878. So everybody take a note. Go back and listen to episode 878 for like the ongoing history of Mike Boguski. Nice. So we talked about you growing up in Etobicoke, Michael. Mm-hmm. Playing in Blue Rodeo. You're a member today of Blue Rodeo. We're gonna have some Blue Rodeo talk in this episode, even though Nichol never heard of them. We're gonna talk about them.
I'm always willing to learn.
We talked about your latest single at the time was called "Here's to Tomorrow."
Yes.
And you played a killer version of Diamond Mine live in the backyard.
Oh,
and I remember neighbors popping. Like, we hadn't heard any live music in so long. It was like so amazing to hear that. I loved your performance in the backyard, Michael.
It was pretty fun, Mike. I got to say, it was. I didn't, because I just went into it with no expectation. I was dying to play music because I was like Cleave and Nichol. We were all suffering. When you do this as your life and you're told, I can't do it anymore. You're just like, whoa, you're chomping at the bit to do it.
Well, I loved it. Okay, now we got that out of the way. I have a nice note for you, Michael. See, it starts off Michael's show. We'll move into Cleave. We'll learn more about Nichol, and we'll come back to Michael, and we'll kind of do the whole West of Jane thing. But Bridget wrote me when she learned you were coming over and said, happy belated birthday to you, Michael Boguski. When was your birthday?
My birthday was on Monday. I turned 47, March 3rd.
Okay, happy birthday, buddy.
I want to say happy birthday to Lisa Lobsinger because she also shares March 3rd.
March 3rd.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Happy birthday, Lisa.
My youngest is coming up March 15. But it's worth noting, we talked about this in episode 878, but I knew your brother well in high school. So your brother, Mark, is my age and my grade, and we all went to Michael Power here in the original location for us anyway.
Yeah, and it's funny because you and my brother, you occupy a very similar mindset. You're both of a generation that came up in the your musical consciousness was in the late 80s, 90s, and you were really sort of the first generation to absorb this sort of Canadian consciousness about independent music in Canada. You're both very similar in that regard. That I remember just because I'm a little younger than you. I just remember my brother would come home with like Lowest of the Low cassettes, or even going deeper, like bands like Dig Circus or early Blue Rodeo or whatever. Stuff that Cleave would have been the originator of that first generation of sort of independent Canadian music. And I think in this time of cultural threat that we're living through right now, it's important to recognize how important that beginning period was, because I think the earlier generation was still sort of, we had Canadian artists, but they were going down to the States. They were trying to make their name in the States, trying to get big US, and not that stopped, but I think whatever happened was started with Blue Rodeo or all of those bands of that generation. It's important to remember that we have our own scene, and I think you and my brother definitely are of that generation that was picking up on that independent Canadian identity very early.
Will your brother Mark listen to this episode?
Oh, totally.
Okay, so I want to say hello to Mark Boguski.
Hey, Mark.
I think we're class of 93, I think, if my memory serves correctly.
Yeah, Mark is funny because he always says to me, he's like, man, you're living my world. When we were young, like I would bring all these artists to listen, and now they're like your colleagues. I'm like, hey, I just hung around and kept my mouth shut and played good music and ended up in this chair somehow.
All right. Well, we're going to, like I said, you'll be part of the Blue Rodeo chat that's coming up very shortly. But I got to say, Cleave Anderson, you're now an FOTM. That means friend of Toronto Mike.
Yes, I knew that.
You knew that.
Yes,
Cleave
I knew
knows
that.
what's going on.
I just forgot for a second.
So, Cleave, I got to do a little bit of a deep dive with you. I pulled some audio, but I'm kind of curious to hear, if you don't mind going back a bit and talking about your life in music before Blue Rodeo, and a little bit about how Blue Rodeo came together. I have a note from Gare Joyce, who knew you were coming over and wanted me to ask you about Heart Pomerantz. Heart Pomerantz, does that mean anything to you? Heart Pomerantz?
I'm going to start by saying I'm 74 years old. I don't remember so good sometimes, but that name is very familiar. But I can't picture what it is. But
if it comes to well, he's very famous, Heart Pomerantz. Here's what I'll give you here. I got
just asked me about him.
Okay, so he's a Canadian lawyer and television personality that's best known for his collaborations with Lorne Michaels. It was the Hart and Lorne Terrific Hour, and this is basically Toronto boy Lorne Michaels. You probably know him best as a Saturday Night Live creator, and there's been a lot of 50th anniversary stuff going on with him. So were you anything here triggering? If it comes to you later, you can spit it into the microphone. Or otherwise, I'll just go give Gare Joyce the shots for wasting my time.
Well, I knew a lot of the O'Haras, and it just seemed to be really prevalent in
I'm gonna let you off
early
the hook.
70s. And I know that Freddie Pompey from the Vile Tones and some of the punk was with Marcus O'Hara's 555 Queen Street booze can that he had. And that was sort of the beginning of punk rock, basically.
On that note,
yeah.
I'm going to play a little punk rock, and this will really kind of get you going here, okay? Really excited to talk to you finally. Here's a little of the Battered Wives. A little taste.
Yeah. Good old Toby.
Well, talk to me, man. I need to know pre-Blue Rodeo.
Okay.
Who the hell was Cleave Anderson? You're on drums here.
Yes, I am. And punk rock was I'd already played. I was saying I was old, 74. Switch your digits around 47.
Hey, look at that. Hey.
He's quick.
And
Still got it.
And so in high school, I was in the high school in the 60s. I always had a little band going, and there were always trios, but, with a lead singer. I guess that 3-ring circus thing always appealed me to reach back to what we were talking about a little earlier. But I always loved the trio. But I was in bands, just did cover songs of Grand Funk Railroad. Not that, I was more into King Crimson or something, but, none of us could play it. So I had been in quite a few bands, but I never really thought I had what it took to, make a career out of it. So I played with who would ever play with me, kind of thing.
So the Battered Wives were looking for a drummer?
That's what when punk rock, came along, I go, there's something I could do. And I'd already played a lot. And, a lot of bands were getting together where they were learning to play as they, I want to be in a band. You buy a guitar, you get some drums. And I hadn't played for a few years, and I had a guitar, and I was writing songs, and I was mostly learning old 60s Yardbirds and Kinks and The Who kind of stuff on an acoustic guitar for my own entertainment. And I was a mailman by then. And when punk rock happened, I just wanted to take my guitar, and I tried to get a band going, but I couldn't find anybody that didn't think it was awful, the punk rock thing. So Battered Wives were looking for a drummer, and I'd seen them. I was going out all the time, seeing all the punk bands. And the bass player, Jasper, I had played with my one full-time band that lasted 3 months, and then I quit and went back to the post office because it was a kind of nightmare. You'd play a week in Huntsville and then Coburg and then St. Catharines.
Yeah, you can't be a letter carrier and a guy on the road in a rock band.
No, so I did take a leave of absence sort of thing. They said they'd have me back anyway, whatever it was. And so I tried it out, and I tried it out for like 2 or 3 months. And by the end of the week, every time that we played weeks in a different town, and at the end of the week, someone would always quit. And we'd have to go back back to Toronto and rehearse a guy for a week and then go out again. After the third time that happened, I don't forget it. Went back to the post office. And
more on that in a minute.
Yeah. So anyway, the punk thing came along. I didn't know what I wanted, but it just seemed like fun. It just seemed like the right fit for me. And I wanted to play punk rock. There was a bunch of bands that sort of thought they fit into it, and it's kind of becoming a thing. So
like Forgotten Rebels, are we talking about this scene or
yeah, they were a real punk rock band. Yeah, of course. And I did.
No, I'm all into this, man. Michael and I missed it. You missed it too, young man. I'm looking in your eyes. You weren't there either.
I've never heard of punk music either.
Don't worry, you're getting the spotlight,
He's too smart,
okay, Nichol?
dude.
I want you to make sure you know that. So Cleave, you're want to be in a punk. You're in a punk band here. But at some point, as we know, if you know the history of punk, the punk scene fades out in the early 80s. Where do you pivot to at that point?
Well, I had, the Battered Wives came along, and I got a chance to be in it and everything. And I said, they're happening. This could be. And so we opened for Elvis Costello, cross Canada tour, all
That's
big
amazing.
soft seater. And that's when I quit at the end of the thing, but that's where Jim and Greg first saw me. They loved Elvis Costello. They saw the show at the O'Keefe Center with the women's groups protesting.
So they saw you and they said, "This guy's a good drummer." I thought maybe it was the
they
Sharks.
saw me from that. Yeah, they saw the Sharks were after. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, don't rush me. I'm trying to.
No. No. Okay.
I can't wait till I'm 74. You can be as ornery as you want, buddy. You've earned the right.
Okay.
I actually love ornery. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can ornery it up a little bit.
Okay. If you guys
amp that up, buddy.
Yeah.
Have another sip at the Canuck here. Okay. So let me just set the
and
table
if you
here.
guys just take this, keep in mind to shut the fuck up once in a while.
Well, I just want to jump in and say that there is an attractions thing I wanted to pick up on because you mentioned that the Battered Wives had opened for the attractions.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's pretty big time because I'm a huge attractions fan. I was at his house one day and he's like, oh, check this out. And he sent this picture of him and Steve Naive, their arms around each other. I think you were at a pool hall or something. And Elvis, I don't know if he was in the photo, but Bruce Thomas was, I think.
Yeah.
And so I like, hey man, can I take a photo of that? And he's like, no problem. Then I sent the photo to Steve Naive, and he's like, oh, I remember Cleave, say hi. And then I gave him my solo album, and he wrote a great thing. He said it was a wonderful sonic journey. So now every time I do my solo album, I'm like, Steve Naive, The Attractions, says this was a wonderful sonic journey. But I wouldn't have been able to have that connection to Steve if it wasn't for taking that photo in Cleve's
Amazing.
house.
So Cleve, but at this point, because I last saw you at, we talked about it before we press record here, but the Red Room at the Masonic Temple, you were there to see the Gary Top panel for the new Gary Top book.
Yeah.
So you were booked. I'm assuming the Garys booked you at some point in this period.
Battered Wives, we were off their radar because we were signed. We were signed actually for a punk rock group. We got signed by the agency, which is the big, did Max Webster and all that. I didn't even want to sign with it, but the other guys did. But so we were playing all these more rock bars and stuff like that. So we got out of sync a little bit, but Gary, my next group after Battered Wives, when I left, I remember I went to the last Pogo. I had just quit the band, and the word was out on the street that, the drummer in Blue Rodeo has quit, and I was there, and I knew
the
pretty
drummer
much everyone.
The drummer in the Battered Wives.
No, Battered Wives, yeah.
By the way, terrible name for a band. I just want to throw it out there, the Battered Wives.
It kind of offends me, Cleve.
Yes, yes, fair enough.
But it was punk,
Fair
right?
enough,
It's punk.
But it was, it was topical. We weren't calling ourselves wife beaters. I never thought it was like trivializing.
Of the
That's
time.
what they hung. It trivializes the issue. But we didn't.
Abort.
Okay, abort.
No, I'm not beating you up over it. I'm not beating you up over it. But you wouldn't
But
name a
yes,
band. West
we
of Jane
offered
is a
a
better
forum for discussion about an important issue. Nobody thought it was like,
Okay,
a
so
joke.
word is on the street, Mr.
Yeah.
Anderson, that there's word on the street that the drummer from Battered Wives is a free agent. Like he's available.
Yes. And I got some offers at the last post. Do you know what the last post?
Colin Brunt.
Yeah,
I'm going to pull out the DVD, which is right here.
Yeah, I noticed Colin did a show for everybody.
Here you go.
Yeah. I'm
Mike
ready.
is well versed in the punk world.
Is
Didn't
this-
you have Art
Colin
Bergman on
Brunton-
the week before I was on last
Yes, I
time?
did. He's been in the basement since then. But Colin Brunton, who was on the Gary Top panel, he's been down here. We talked at great lengths about the last Pogo.
And there's a jumps again thing too, right?
Hold on here.
And
Mr. Cleve, I need
I
to prove I've
do a
got my.
big
I need to
interview
prove
on
I have
that.
my bona fides over
Okay.
here. Okay.
Yeah, you got so far so good there, Mike.
Love this guy. West of Jane. Don't ever lose this guy, Cleave Anderson.
I won't. There was only, like I said, there was really only two people. This guy and this guy. And if they had said no, the organ would have collected dust in my mom's basement. But the energy here is real. Everybody here has a DIY punk mentality that I think pushes us into where we're at. So
Okay, where we're at is we're going to get you to Blue Rodeo,
Yeah,
Cleve.
yes,
Okay,
we're-
so
yes,
what's
we're going,
between Battered Wives and Blue Rodeo?
Okay, the next at Last Pogo, I met this woman, Rabies, had Tyrana, this band. You've heard about that? We opened, the Garys gave us some primo spots opening for Devo and Iggy Pop.
Wow.
And they liked,
Those are some names.
so that was the first band they managed. I think that was more Cormier's thing.
Right.
And then that lasted a year, and we did lots of great. I'm very proud of Tyrana, and I love the songs that she wrote, and I wrote some of the songs too. And everybody wrote in the band, and everybody was much younger. They were young, and she had a real pop sensibility, but she, it was definitely new wave punk and everything.
Cool.
So I thought it lasted a year, and then for whatever reasons, it didn't last after that. And then I joined the Sharks, which Gary Top managed. And Gary told me if I can brag a little bit at that, I played the Edge more than any other single person.
Is that right?
Because I also was playing with Colin Linden at the same time, and he was booked in there often. And I was there. I saw Psychedelic Furs and B-52s I spent a lot of time at the Edge.
But we got to point out, who was the bassist for the Sharks?
The Sharks was Basil Donovan.
Gotta bring it here.
That's where, Jim and Greg. We played Jim and Greg had the hi-fis. I'm sure you know that. But
Well,
that was our
absolutely.
little group before Blue Rodeo.
Yep.
And they had, they got the privilege of opening for the Sharks a couple of times. And At the Edge was one of those shows. And there's a recording of the Sharks from that thing and the hi-fis as well. I believe, I don't think they just recorded us, but Gary...
Okay,
That's
very
the
cool.
thing.
Now, quick,
Yeah.
just chiming in here. So I just will tell the listenership, there's a recent episode with Greg Keeler to talk about the documentary, which I want to talk to you and Michael about.
And me too, because I was in it.
Nichol is in the documentary for I think 2.5 seconds at
Yeah.
approximately the halfway.
I would have
point.
given him 5 seconds. That's
Oh,
bullshit.
good.
Yeah.
2.5. Yeah,
He's
we're
only getting
gonna
up for
we're gonna have a Blue Rodeo
big oversight.
chat.
But I gotta say, it's the best looking 2.5 seconds I've ever seen of Nichol. Like he looks so good.
Well, he's
in
good
those
looking.
2.5.
Like, I'm
He's
looking
very
at
good
him,
looking.
and I like how I like
You
the
know.
style.
No.
The brown cardigan.
You gotta look good if you want to be in West Virginia.
You got a cardigan. Where's your cardigan, Cleave?
I'm getting one.
Is
Just
this like
take it easy.
Is it
Cut
like
me some
a
slack.
West of Jane uniform? The cardigan.
Yeah, I think
We
it
were-
could be. This is our off
You guys
gig
have never.
attire.
These guys have never gone on stage with cardigans.
No.
Is it like a
No,
Perry Como thing or a Kurt Cobain thing, or is it a Mr.
Could
Rogers
be.
thing?
I think my wife loves Kurt Cobain. Honestly, she could have a PhD in Nirvanaology. Like, it's unbelievable. Our library in our condo is just all books about Mark Lanigan, grunge, Nirvana. So I'm wearing this month in honor of Kurt's birthday, and of course my lovely wife who loves all things Nirvana.
So the name I'm throwing at Cleave, and then again, Cleave, you're 74 years old. You say anything on your mind at any time. You can interrupt Michael. You can interrupt Nichol. But I want to ask you about Handsome Ned. I did when I was in the woodshed chatting with Jim Cuddy, and I wanted to talk about Handsome Ned. Just share a little bit about Handsome Ned with me, if you don't mind, before we get you to Blue Rodeo here.
Well, Handsome Ned, you knew that you were really tight with Ned if he took his hat off in front of you. And we had a rehearsal, and I was driving. He lived on Spadina, and I was driving him home, and he took his hat off, and he looked over at me, and he didn't look like Handsome Ned anymore, but he gave me a kind of little nod. I knew I had kind of moved, the Ned. But anyways,
Big
okay,
deal.
Ned, yes, he was the kind. Jim and Greg had met. They took this trip out west, they had a bus in one summer, like probably 74 or 5 or something like that. And they told me when they got back that Ned worked at the Banff Springs Hotel, and Jim and Greg took a short part-time job there while they continued on to the West Coast.
Right.
And they came back talking about Ned, and I'd already seen Ned, and he had a band called the Velours that no one ever mentions. That was before, the Hayseed Hellions, and it was just Handsome Ned. What do you call the first one? The
Sidewinders? No.
Mike McKenna has a Sidewinder. Yes, but it might be the same name because I did do the last. They had Jimmy Demick as a drummer. Do you know the Dem? You know all of the Demics. And
I know the Demics.
it was Handsome Ned with
It's the Sidewinders.
The bass player.
Was I right? The Sidewinders?
The Sidewinders, 100%.
Yeah.
Once again, Boguski's correct.
Because Cleve and I, we have the great honor and privilege of playing in the John Bora band. We play every first set, and Nichol always plays after us, which is fantastic with his duo with Mike Kerr.
Is this the Cameron House?
Cameron House, which is sort of like early Blue Rodeo stomping grounds. But we always do a Handsome Ned tune in that set. What's the tune that John always calls her, Cleve? I can't remember.
Yeah, we've done a few, but the most.
Recently, we've been doing. That'll be the love that that'll be the love that I don't.
Yeah.
Bora's great. I love this guy, John Bora.
Yeah.
And Change of Heart, he's no longer with Change of Heart, but they I'm going to see him on Geary in April. They got like a new album. Change of Heart.
That's cool. With that, like every member, I think contributes. That's real. I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be wild.
Big Blurden head over here.
I guess Glenn will be on that too, right? Because he was a Change of Heart member.
Glenn is in the calendar, so another announcement for the Blue Rodeo heads out there. Glenn is in the Toronto Mike calendar. He's going to make his debut.
You'll have a lot of fun with Glenn. He's great.
A calendar, what? There's 12 people. What did you say? Tell me about the calendar.
No, it's the
calendar.
Toronto Mike's recording calendar.
Yes.
So today, Cleave
yeah.
Anderson, all
Oh,
caps, Cleave
okay.
Anderson. It's like
Yeah.
when you see the Post-it notes, who's on Saturday Night Live next week. So looking for it. And John Bora, of course, was in a Neon Rome. And so how do you end up forming Blue Rodeo with, and who are the founding members of Blue Rodeo, Mr. Anderson?
Okay, so I had been in the Sharks, and then after that, there was a little bit of time. Oh, I went back playing with Toby from Battered Wife. We had a band, Gamma that had Trish Cullen and Brian Didier. He was a black, funky bass player, and Trish was the queen of the synthesizer. She played on movie soundtracks, and it was a very, very good band. And Toby was a very exciting guitar player, too. So we had done that. We played on bills with Neon Rome and so on. So I did that for a while, and then Toby got on a sailboat and went down to Florida and lived down there. So that, couldn't do the band then. But then, I did Angel of Montenegro, which had a oboe and a French horn in it and all that, and it was all kind of pompous, tongue-in-cheek pompous pop music, classical, colorings and stuff. So after, but I had done, and I was sort of in between bands, and I had my first little boy, and I stayed home. I was
Who's the mother of this child?
That's Ingrid Schumacher that you have.
Just waiting for you to drop. I want to
Yeah.
say hello to Ingrid, who's also been on The Basement, and we'll get long time Chum FM personality, just a radio legend in this market.
Yeah, pioneer in 1977. She was
on the air the night
very
Lennon was
few
killed. She was on the air, and I found that audio. It's just wild to hear Ingrid Schumacher talking on December 8th, 1980.
Yeah.
Okay, so
the
How'd you get in with Blue Rodeo?
okay, yes.
Boguski's helping you out.
What was the last thing I said? I'm trying to make.
You're
brief
talking
thing
about pompous pop.
Oh yes, okay. Then I had my little baby boy, and such a good father. I stayed home for 9 days.
That's a Blue Rodeo rite of passage, by the way. You have your first child, and then you engage yourself. I think Jim had Devin, and then they were recording Outskirts, and and my son William was 3 months old when I got the call, and so that's just the way it goes.
So I went downtown out to the Yonge Street was kind of happening again. There was the Metropolitan and the Century 66. I think it was the same location. I don't know what name it was, but I went there to have a beer. I took the subway down from my home in Hyde Park, and there was Jim and Greg there, and they'd been. I remember walking up Yonge Street with them, going by John Steinberg's Rainbow Room, hair cutting salon, and they were going home because they lived up around there, and they said, we're going to New York. And they went to New York for 2.5 years, and then they had just come back, and they went to this bar that I showed up at. And they,
do you remember which bar?
Saw me. Yes, Century 66, or maybe it was the Metropolitan. I think it was the same, one of the two. And so they said, we're starting a band. We got a name. We got a band, Blue Rodeo. We've already been played at CBGB and so on. And I was kind of in between bands, and they sound really serious and everything. So I said, well, let's talk about it. And then I remember I got together with them, and it's all in the documentary, I think, where I go, you guys don't do serious. I got a kid now, and I'm 10 or 12 or whatever years in at the post office already. And I don't really even, the idea of having a career in music, I wanted to play, but I didn't necessarily want to have to make work, take that responsibility. And they said, just Cleave, you're not the only drummer in town, just do it for a while. And, when we get somebody else when you can't do it anymore. I go, yeah, okay. Just like that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
So I did. That's how then we just started up, and we couldn't find Basil. They wanted Basil, and
I just want to jump in here. Like, there was a lot of drummers then. There was clearly something about the way you drum, and this, I'm just bringing it back to West of Jane. Like Cleave has a very idiosyncratic way. I don't know if it's because you're left-handed or if it's your influences, but even Nichol and I often talk about this because, there's been a few West of Jane gigs where we've had to get a sub because Cleave can't make it, and it's just doesn't matter how schooled or experienced the sub is. Like, there's only one Cleave Anderson. So they clearly heard back in, what was that, in the 30s or 40s?
1984.
1984. What Nichol and I have often spoken of, which is the Cleave Anderson sound. It's pretty great.
I am an individual, I think, but I attribute mostly to being really, really screwed up.
We're going to need a sequel episode to dive into that. So you're a founding member of Blue Rodeo.
Yeah.
It's obviously Greg Keeler, Jim Cuddy, Cleave Anderson. Who else is a founding member?
Well, Basil, and then, we'd done a bunch of rehearsals. I said, everybody had keyboard players then, but it was mostly the new wavy, synthesizer.
The Rob Pruses.
Yes.
He's the Spoons guy.
Yeah, I know.
He's great.
Yeah, I do know that.
Really great.
Yeah.
He's on Toast. He's in this basement once a month. He drives from New York to be on Toast episodes of Toronto Mike. You should come in as a guest one day.
I'd love that. I'm just getting it. He kind of likes something I put on socials a couple of weeks ago, and I'm getting into his
he
down.
co-wrote Romantic Traffic.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know about the man.
Okay.
Okay.
Great
So
song. So, anyways, there was the four of us, and we're just a guitar band. I don't even know why. I don't know why I even remember saying, you thinking of getting a keyboard player? No, we don't have a keyboard player. But they knew Bobby's brother. They worked with him in New York, Bobby's older brother, and he was a great guy and all that. He said, you should check out my younger brother, And I think when Jim and Greg found out he didn't have any synthesizers, he had an Ace Tone organ, and he had a clavinet, some, old beat-up clavinet, and they thought the sound of the Ace Tone, it was more Elvis Costello-ish, I guess. I don't know what old Steve Naive played.
That's funny that you mentioned that because Bobby himself has said that he wanted a Prophet 5, but he couldn't afford it, so he went to Long and McQuay and he got like a shitty Ace Tone. So if he had got the Prophet 5, he probably wouldn't have got the gig.
That's funny. That's fantastic. Okay, so obviously we're not going to spend 90 minutes on Blue Rodeo because there's so many Blue Rodeo. But we now have Cleave Anderson as drummer for Blue Rodeo. And if you want to hear all the details, there's a Jim Cuddy episode, there's a Greg Keeler episode. But bottom line is the first single from Outskirts kind of flops. This is from these chats I've had of these gentlemen. But then the second single, it's called Try, is a big success in this country. And the rest is kind of history. But here's my pointed question for you, because I do want to talk to Nichol and I want to get back to Michael Boguski and then touch on what happened post Blue Rodeo. But Outskirts with Try breaks Blue Rodeo. Blue Rodeo now is a big deal in this country. I know, Michelle McAdory, she's in the video for Try. It's all over the place. Yeah, I know. I'm telling you something you know here. And then the follow-up album is Diamond Mine. And again, a big Diamond Mine, its original studio version with Bob Wiseman, FOTM Bob Wiseman. Then the version I prefer, which is the backyard version by Michael Boguski. That's what I'm calling it.
The Weather Report version.
The Weather Report, what a beautiful day that was. It was hot, but it was beautiful. So my question for you, Cleave, is now that there's big hits in this country, this is a bigger band in Canada particularly, and I'm wondering why you decided to leave Blue Rodeo in 1989. And no judgments, by the way. No judgments. I'm actually just.
No, I know.
Want to have the conversation.
It didn't sound judgment.
Okay, good. I don't want to make it sound like that. I didn't want to say what an idiot.
No, but sometimes people ask, "Why did you quit Blue Rodeo?" And then I tell them why I quit, and then they go, "Yeah, but why did you quit Blue Rodeo?" I'm listening because I have to say so. It's funny
when you do. If you ever, I don't know, what's your relationship like today with Ingrid Schumacher?
Oh, not bad.
Not bad.
Fine,
okay,
yes,
I have XY. It's not bad. Okay.
No,
but
it's yeah.
I was talking. We had this conversation.
I think
too.
she would have preferred I stayed with the band. If you think, I was doing it. I just wanted to. Yes, I was a family guy, and I didn't really. We had done little touring, short little tours, and England for a couple of weeks, and went to Hamburg once and stuff. And it was always sort of fun the first time, but I didn't want to do that. And we mixed the album down at Dan Lanois Kingsway studio in New Orleans. I came back. My manager drops me off at the airport. You know, I'm flying back,
Right.
and to go back to work and everything. And we all had jobs. For a year.
I just kind of want to step in because this is like, it's a hard question, you know, to answer for Cleveland. I don't think people realize that, like, the music industry is no joke. It's like you can't make a living in it. Like, Jim was a props manager during Diamond Mine. You know, I worked a day job in property management for almost my entire tenure in Blue Rodeo, up until I had no choice. I had a situation, I had to sell my business. But, you know, Nichol teaches like all morning, all day, so if you had a union gig as a postal worker and you have a child, like, you know, just because Blue Rodeo happened to turn into this thing that was successful, that you wouldn't know that at the time. And sure, you might do a tour, you might get a record deal. You're dropped as quickly as you're hired in this business. It's ruthless. You know. But
that's a good point. So Canada Post, you had a job there.
Yeah.
This has what's a pension, right?
Yeah.
Like I just had this chat with some listeners, and it's like they're talking about, I got this pension, or because we have a union with a pension, and I don't have a fucking pension.
Nobody has a pension anymore, and it was dwindling fast. That was part of the thing, and I liked working at the post office, basically, and I liked coming home and then going out and doing gigs.
You're a family guy.
And I knew I could get more gigs and all that, and have more diversity in my.
I get it. No, I get it.
Yeah. I know.
I think what's surprising to people is they think, okay, obviously there's many a story of somebody who leaves a band and then it breaks, and it's like, you know, okay, just whatever, you didn't know it was going to break. But the fact that the first two albums, Outskirts and Diamond Mine, you are on those albums, and then you decide to walk away. Like for the average listener, I know better. Okay, you made a good point, Michael, that every rock star in this basement pretty much has another gig. You know, maybe they're making deliveries. Who knows what they're doing? But they're doing something else. This is the Canadian rock star model for whatever reason. But it's surprising when people hear that you would leave a band that already had two successful albums under their belt.
Yeah.
But you get a pension, you enjoy it?
I had Juno Awards, you know. It's not like all of a sudden it became more. It was a relief, kind of. They were fun. They're great guys. They all were. And, you know, but I just, you know, it was just like I said, you know, I did it for 5 years and I went, you know, fly little baby birdies.
But it depends on what you have. Like, for example, I worked in property management. I got to say this year, I had given up on music, right? I had tried everything, classical, jazz, every gig I could do. And I said, like, I'm done. My fate is to work the family business. And my uncle, who runs the family business, said, yeah, okay, you can work here on one condition, that you keep pursuing your career in music. If you don't pursue music full time while you're working here, you can't work here.
Well, that's because he loves you.
It's pretty awesome, right? So then when the break came for Blue Rodeo, I had to go with it. And but if I didn't have that sort of burning desire to prove everybody wrong, that I could have made it. Like, if I had a good, secure union gig with coworkers that I liked, it's a route in my neighborhood, I could totally see, like, if I had a child, why do I want to go on the road for instability and dealing with all that, you know, only to maybe get dropped? Maybe I'm not even going to be the keyboard player on the next tour. Maybe they're going to get some other guy in the wings or something. It's a lot of stress, you know.
You're sort of on call 24 hours. You know, you got big gig comes up.
Yeah, there's a misconception, though. There's a misconception, and I try to correct people by having conversations like this, that, I was listening to 680 CFTR, all hits back before it went all news. And they play Try all the time. They play Diamond Mine all the time. That Cleave Anderson is a big celebrity, rich guy, because he's in that big band that I hear on the radio. Much Music plays the hell out of the videos. But there's perhaps that's true in America. If you're equivalent success in the United States of America, maybe that drummer doesn't have to have a Canada Post job. I don't know. Oh,
and maybe I didn't have to have I just wanted to have that.
Yeah.
But everything's
a different lifestyle, you know?
But so much is hype machine. Look at these young artists now that are like getting all the streams on Spotify. They're huge. Their take home after a tour is nothing. Right. Like, people just, like, there's this really false notion that, you know, you're still tour to tour, you know, and a band like Blue Rodeo, like, they're still working. Like, they're not It's not U2. It's not the Rolling Stones. You gotta be smart and you gotta be business savvy and you have to keep working at an advanced age. You know.
And one last question on this topic, and then I want to talk about the doc, and I dive into Nichol's amazing career too. But any regrets?
No. Short answer, no. No
Good job,
regrets.
buddy.
I mean, sometimes I think, what have I done on those songs? I hear a song, I think it would have been pretty cool to have played those songs. But of course, if I had stayed in the band, everything would have been different.
If he stayed in the band, we might be in the band together, and you wouldn't want to be in West Virginia. We wouldn't even want to be looking at each other, maybe.
And
So there you go.
that would be very sad.
Oh my goodness gracious. Movie Vigilante heard you were coming on, Cleave Anderson, and he just said, what a stacked week. I'm looking forward to Cleave. It was nice to see him in the Lost Together doc. So just maybe a little moment here, maybe you guys, less me, more you guys, talking about, the documentary. You're all in the doc.
Yeah, we're on the dock. It was really great that Nichol was in that for that short amount of time because that was such a beautiful tour he was on. Now, Nichol played on Devin Cuddy's first two albums. We had the Devin Cuddy. Devin is, of course, Jim's son. His band opened for us on this tour, and what they would do is they would do an opening set in front of the audience for Blue Rodeo, and then as soon as they were done, they would pack up their gear and they would go play a little club. And so we would finish our set, and we'd go in, and every night they would just be lighting it on fire. Like it was a real, and they're very R&B, New Orleans influence. So to me, it sounded like one of the great R&B bands that you hear about when you hear about the 60s R&B scene in Toronto. You hear about the Hawks, or you hear about like all of those kind of bands. And I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to let Nichol talk because Nichol was there. He was part of that.
Yeah.
You got to wake him up first, okay? He's having a snooze.
It's been a long morning.
Yeah.
That tour was amazing. Like when you guys were talking about having young kids, when I got the call to do the tour, my first kid was 5 months old.
Oh, wow.
And so I had a huge talk with my wife about like, can I go on the road for 2 months opening up for Blue Rodeo when we've got a little baby at home? And and to her credit or not, she told me I should do it. And I did it. And it was great.
I don't think I saw Adele since that tour. When you guys came over for dinner, I'm like, last time I saw you was Massey Hall. Like,
probably, yeah. Yeah, no, she's busy doing her thing. So, and that tour was great. I remember when Devin's manager pitched to us that we were going to be playing shows after the big show every night. And to me, that only made sense because one of the worst parts about touring as an opening act is playing the same fucking 10 songs for half an hour every single night, and it's just the same over and over again. I'm used to playing 3 gigs in a night. I'm used to doing all these different bands. Touring, that was one of my big problems with touring, was just samey. So at least getting to like scramble to go to a gig afterwards was more normal in my life, and it was super fun. It was great.
Did all three of you enjoy the documentary Lost Together?
I haven't seen it.
I thought it was really classy. Like, it could have gone dark and gross, but it didn't. It was really positive. And again, like I said, we're living in this crazy time now where our cultural sovereignty is under assault. And I think the fact that this movie is a positive representation of, what Blue Rodeo means to the country and to people. And I really love the way that it was, focused on the origin story. Because, like, honestly, like, I've been there almost 17 years, but it's a 40 years anniversary this year. So I like the way that Cleave was given a lot of time, and Dale did an amazing job on that documentary. Yeah,
it's just an effortless kind of flowing thing. It's just kind of, it's not fun. It's fun, I guess, and it's just it's kind of delightful, I think. Well,
and I've heard it kind of peaks when I make my like little screen appearance in it. I've heard
that's the height of the handsomeness right there.
Right, and the people when they have,
and then then the people want to get out of the parking lot.
Gentlemen,
honey, it's all downhill now.
Can I play a little something for you?
Yes.
Play anything.
Yeah,
I love playing.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. like the wrong turf to be playing this song.
That's way tighter than a West of Jane track.
What are we listening to, Nichol?
Yeah, this is my record that came out last year in May. It's called Mimico Moonlight, and this is the title track off of it. Yeah. This is an instrumental trio I have with Mike Boguski and Sean Dean. We play every Thursday at Reposado, have for years. And we cut this record a little while ago and then put it out last year. And yeah, I'm super proud of it. It sounds great on phones. I don't think I've listened to it on phones in a long time.
It does sound great. I'll excuse this horrific title, Mimico Moonlight. No, just kidding. We have a couple of Mimico guys in the basement here.
Well, I mean, it's the same moon that shines in Long Branch.
Is it?
You know, it's the same moon.
Yeah, you just blew my mind.
Yeah, man.
I feel like my now 8-year-old once had this moment where she was, I can't remember, but it was like we were seeing a moon and there was some other moon, and she had this like epiphany that it was the same moon.
Yeah.
Like, it was a moment, and I remember like, oh yeah, I guess you don't come out of the womb knowing this that it's the same moon, right? You gotta have a moment where you clue it all together.
I think Cleave might have just
Cleave
learned this.
I'm gonna blow.
I once mooned a whole group of Italian football supporters after France lost the World Cup in was that
the headbutt game? No.
Yeah, that was when Zidane headbutted. Yeah, I was drinking a lot then and I was into mooning. So
well, now you drink hot pop, so you're good now. More questions, of course. A wonderful question came in for Nichol when I put on Blue Sky that he was dropping by. Bob says he's a seriously talented guy. That's you.
Huh.
I'm not even done.
Thanks, Bob.
So brace yourself.
This is great.
Bob, go see his band, the Hooligoons.
Oh yeah.
Anytime you can. They do 30s, 40s Hawaiian music to perfection. These are some of the best players in Canada. Their pedal steel player, Burke Carroll, gave Steve Howe a guitar lesson when Yes was in town about a decade ago. These guys are at that level.
Yeah. To be clear, Burke plays lap steel in the band. But yeah, Burke's one of the best pedal and lap steel players and dobro players in the country. And he's been a friend for many years. And the Hooligoons was a dream that he had that we started, maybe about a decade ago. And it's a Hawaiian band. It's to let Burke play lap steel and do that beautiful music. And I'm just happy to be a part of that one. That's great.
I remember the first time I ever heard Burke play, it was in the Dakota Tavern. I was heavily intoxicated, and I almost fell into his pedal steel, and I sort of just was at the altar of Burke going, wow, you're like the best musician I've ever heard in this bar ever. And he was very cool about it, and he was so nice, and Burke Carroll is definitely a treasure.
When we started the Hooligoons, Burke had come over to my house to run through some tunes, just him and I. And at the end, we thought, yeah, this is great. We'll have a band. And so Burke says, I'm going to go home. I'm going to get some more music together. We'll ponder a bass player and a drummer and a vocalist. And I texted him back, and he still laughs about this. I said, Burke, music is second, if that. The first thing that we're going to do is get shirts. So we wear Hawaiian shirts. The second thing we're going to do is book a gig. And I could say that to Burke because like Mike just said, Burke is a master musician. So music is never going to be down the list on his end. But I was adamant that we had to wear Hawaiian shirts and get lays and have it be a thing. And then the band started very quickly after that. I think we booked a gig the next week and made it happen with Ted Hawkins and Victor Bateman.
How many bands are you in right now?
I would...
Too many to
No,
count.
really,
Yeah,
I want to know,
like-
just including the family band, do every one.
Okay. So there's the family band, the Robinson Sons. We don't play as much as we used to in the pandemic, but it's great. We're still doing some stuff. We got Monday Night Country Flash. We have Thursday, the Mimico Moonlighters with Mike Boguski and Sean Dean. I got Nichol Robertson and Mike T. Kerr. I have the Fred Speck Camp Combo. I have the Lollipop People with my friend Richard Marcella. We got Nick and the Narcs. That's a fun one.
Fabulous.
The Hooligoons.
We're at 8.
Yeah, 8, 9,
West
10.
of Jane is 9.
West of Jane is
Come
9.
on, one more and it's 10. Make something up.
Snowbird?
Snowbird's defunct now.
What about the Lay Ray Boys?
That's defunct also. Graham moved up to the woods and I haven't seen him since.
Thelonious Hank.
There we go. There's number
That's
10.
it. We're at
There's
10.
number 10.
10 bands for our guy Nichol.
At least. I'm sure there's more that I can't think of, and
I'm
I
sure.
apologize if I'm offending
Yeah, but
anybody.
10 active bands.
But like 10 active bands. So that's the route that I took through music, was quantity over quality.
But you're never going to be bored. Like, it sounds like
No.
you mentioned doing 3 shows a night or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, you need this.
Yeah, it's great.
That's
It's,
what you love.
Yeah, I kind of like Cleave was talking about, like, the rigors of going on tour and the benefits to diversifying. I love a lot of different kinds of musics. And if you had to listen to all of the musical loves that I have all in one band, you'd go insane. It would be the worst band ever because it would just be a mashup of everything. And you don't need to hear that. So every band I have serves a very particular musical love of mine.
Scratches the itches.
Yeah.
Can I ask you
And-
about a specific band?
Go for it.
Sorry to interrupt, but
No.
just because I just had Don Pyle over here, and
yeah.
we talked Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet.
Yeah.
How influential would a band like Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet be to you?
In a lot of different ways. Like, I mean, I think probably the strongest influence they had on me was through Dallas Good. Because I saw a Sadie's clip on Open Mic with Mike Bullard, speaking of Mike talk shows.
Who was talked about in great detail with Ed the Sock Monday
Yeah,
Monday on this
Ed's
program.
Clip.
That's
Part of
beautiful.
that. Yeah. Great.
Cleve did his homework. He heard the Bullard
Yeah, I
talk.
thought I better know a couple
So
of things.
in 1999, I was at home, just going through the channels, and Open Mic was on, and there was a close up of Dallas Good's face, and they were playing, and I thought, what the fuck is this? I don't understand this. And it blew my mind because it was country music, but it was cool because at that point in my life, the only country that was even kind of cool was super old stuff. And most of the new stuff at the time I didn't like at all. And then I saw those guys, and it was a Sadie's. Yeah, they kind of changed my whole look on things. And I think, Dallas was really close buddies with Reed Diamond, who played bass with those guys. And and they had a band called blanking on it, but it was basically Dallas replaced Brian Connolly, and they had another band. They did a record with Jad Fair, and so that's sort of like, I don't think twangy instrumental reverby quasi surf, but we're not a surf band music would exist in Toronto if it weren't for Brian Connolly and those guys, and it just trickled down. And now I'm like, yeah, like, I mean, I love Brian. He plays at Reposado every week also, and I go out and check him out.
Does he?
Yeah, every
didn't know
Tuesday.
that.
Every Tuesday.
Oh,
I love on the reboot of The Kids in the Hall, they have a shot of Dallas playing with the Shadows.
Right,
and
because
that's so great.
Right.
he played
Yeah.
bass with them.
I-
when
it was
they rebooted.
impossible to watch that without getting teary. So
Huge loss. I mean, I'm the age Dallas was when he died, and it's a huge loss. I've had his uncle. I did a Good Brothers episode. I had his uncle on.
they have a new single out about that. Did you hear that? It's another one you can't really listen to without
Jeez.
getting emotional. It's a great tune.
And I'm a big Gord Downey and Tragically Hip fan, and Dallas's work with Gord's solo material. It's what an incredible loss. Absolutely.
I got the. I think did Don put out he was selling. I don't know if it was Don selling photos.
Yeah,
I have one in my studio, and it's fantastic because every time I get excited about a take and I think, oh, this is it, it's great. I'll look at the picture of Dallas and I'll be like, no, I can do better.
That's amazing. Now, just a fun little small world story is, so I mentioned Rob Pruce. Rob Pruce, I always closed every episode of this podcast with Rosie and Gray from Shakespeare in My Butt, Lowest of the Low. I think your brother Mark was a big fan too. Love that song. I close every episode, but at some point I wanted to change it up so the algorithm would stop telling me like I don't have permission to put this on YouTube and Spotify and all this bullshit I deal with, even though Ron Hawkins is happy I play the damn thing, but this is another story for another time. But I said, Rob Pruce, can you re-record it with the keyboards and give me a cover, which is how we'll close this episode.
Nice.
But he added these Easter eggs at the end of things that reoccur on Toronto Mike on this program, and he does a little bit of Having an Average Weekend by Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet, because I love Kids in the Hall. So
Nice.
you'll hear,
Beautiful.
even when we wrap up, you'll hear a little Easter egg at the end here.
Hope it's a chocolate Easter egg.
Easter's coming. Did you know that? So obviously, I'm going to just play a little bit of another song here, and then we're going to take a moment where you guys are going to like
Ooh, right.
get ready to play, and that's when I'll thank some of the sponsors for everything. One thing though, I do need to ask you guys about before I play maybe while I play the song. Let me play the damn song.
Oh, yeah, there we go. That's some good end credits music underscore right there.
Mike, what are we listening to?
Yeah, that's a tune I wrote called Highway 62, and I included it as a hidden track on my re-release of my album Here's to Tomorrow, Goodbye to Yesterday. And it's interesting because I had an album release, and I had phoned Nichol like 4 hours before the gig saying, hey, can you learn this tune and just come by and play it, which he obviously did and hit it out of the park. But yeah, I re-released my album. Very interesting, long and short. I'd worked on several albums with Peter J. Moore over many years, and Peter and I became somewhat close, and he was sort of my go-to on many things audio related and whatnot. And sadly, he passed. I was playing his memorial at the church,
Trinity.
Yeah, Trinity Church, and I had had a few encounters with Terry Brown prior to that, and Terry was there, and we talked, and I didn't really know Terry that well. Terry, obviously, of Rush fame, and produced Blue Rodeo's first album. And then I asked Terry, I said, hey, can you help me finish this album? And he didn't really know me. He was like, okay, maybe I'll think about it. And then he agreed to do it. And I found out he lives up the road from me. Anyway, so he basically remixed the whole album. We took some tracks off, added some new ones. So that's why there's a re-release. And so you're hearing some Terry Brown brilliance there with the mixing board, and of course Colin Cripps on guitar and Glenn Milcham from Blue Rodeo on drums.
Sounds great, man.
Thank you.
Sounds great. So you did some work. Here's a gentleman I've always wanted on Toronto Mike, but I feel like he might be Mike shy in some regard because he politely declined his invitation. How dare he? Michael Timmins? You mentioned Trinity.
Michael Timmins is a big part of this album too. I totally forgot because this all started
That's
with.
what I'm here for, Mike.
Yeah, this all started in 2019. I did an album of solo free improvised piano called Blues for the Penitent, which Mike. I approached Mike with just about doing a regular kind of standard instrumental album, and I improvised something on the last cut. And he's like, that's where it's at. You should go with that. And then at that point, Greg had sort of announced he was done with Blue Rodeo. I went back to York University to finish with Casey Sokol, who was a great sort of musical guru to many, including Bobby Wiseman. And so I finished my improv studies. I ended up cutting this album. I went back sometime later and said, hey, Michael, can we do some more? I brought Basil and Cleave in. Cleave's on this album as well, right? Yeah. We're on that track, A Message from Mars, right? Mm-hmm. And which is a very much an improv influenced. And I did a track called December, which Michael has an incredible guitar solo on. And then it's funny, I put on the Trinity sessions the other day just because I alphabetized all my vinyl, and it's all signed by the band. I had gone and seen them back in the day, and they signed it. And I just keep forgetting how cool Michael Timmins is and how amazing of a musician he is. And I'm really blessed to have all of those people on that album.
Here's to Tomorrow, Goodbye to Yesterday.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So that's only came out in January, and you can get it now.
Yeah, it's on all of the streaming services, and of course, if you want to buy a physical copy, which is the best way to go about it, you just go to my website, MikeBoguski.com.
Okay, MikeBoguski.com to buy that. And Nichol, where would you send people to buy your Mimico Moonlight?
Legally, I've got to ask you to go through my management company, Nickel and Dime
Is that Cleave?
Management.com. Yeah, it's https
colon slash backslash
2 backslashes
www.
worldwideweb.nickelanddimemanagement.com.
How's nickel spelled?
Nickel. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it's got nothing
I know.
to do with me. It's just a management company that that trusts in me and
Good
believes
question,
in all my
Cleve. You want
projects.
to co-host with me?
Yeah. Yeah. How much money?
I have Great Lakes beer for you, if that's enough. But I wanted to do before I.
Oh, can I jump in with one quick thing? I have a very fragile ego, so I need more followers. So follow at MikeBoguski.com so that I don't cry in the morning. Thank you.
We don't want that. Nobody wants that.
No.
Do you three gentlemen enjoy Italian food?
Yes.
Is that one yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So okay. So what I have, and it's amazing because I didn't know. Nichol was a surprise, happy surprise,
Always a surprise.
much like my fourth born. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, she wasn't a surprise. That was a joke,
funny.
everybody. For real, it was a joke. I'd own it if it was true, but it's not true.
Are you booked in Yuck Yucks or anything?
No, you know what? There was Yuck Yucks. The guy at that top panel, Jeff Silverman,
Yeah.
president of Yuck Yucks. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, he's Breslin's guy
learning.
to run Yuck
Yeah,
Yucks.
I'm
So
learning.
it's all
Yeah.
connected here. Cleve,
Yeah.
stick with me, buddy. We're going to go
Okay,
places.
all right.
So I do have a lasagna in my freezer, one for each of you. I won't make you even share the same lasagna. This is from Palma Pasta. So you just have to commit from now on to the end of time. You will only buy food at Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville.
Done.
Okay.
Done. Okay.
I'm in.
So you guys scatter. I'm going to do a little
Oh, yeah,
sponsor
here we
mention
go.
and then describe. Don't hit your head, Michael.
Yeah, I got to remember things. Don't hit my head and don't get mad at my bandmates.
Don't get mad at your bandmates. And, of course, take off the headphones before you walk around. People sometimes forget that. And I will do a little play-by-play. So, but I'm going to thank some sponsors. And there's a lot of setup happening here. And there's a camera on you. So if people can find Toronto Mike on YouTube. That's where you find the Charlie Angus clip about Wayne Gretzky that was literally just taken and used on This Hour Has 22 Minutes yesterday. So if you watched This Hour Has 22 Minutes yesterday, they took footage that was on my YouTube. They didn't tell me or ask me, which is fine. If they had just stuck an attribution, like if CBC had just put Toronto Mike or from TorontoMike.com or Toronto Mike's YouTube channel, I wouldn't have given a shit. But they don't do any attribution, which I think is interesting, but to be discussed at a later date, maybe on FOTM cast on April 1st. So, quickly, let me thank Nick Iones. He's from Fusion Corp Development, and his podcast is called Building Toronto's Skyline. I urge you to subscribe. And while you're subscribing to that, subscribe to Between Two Fermenters from Great Lakes Brewery and Life's Undertaking. That's from Ridley Funeral Home. These are all great podcasts. I highly recommend them. And these are great sponsors as well. And speaking of great sponsors, recyclemyelectronics.ca. That's where you go if you have old cables, old electronics. You don't throw them in the garbage. The chemicals will end up in our landfill, and that sucks. So go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, put in your postal code, find out where to drop it off. Now, let me do a little bit of play-by-play here. So where are we at here? I'm looking now. Okay, there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes. This is exciting here. So Cleve is in the washroom. He's had some Great Lakes, and he's giving it back. So that's where Cleve is. We got Michael Boguski's frantically here. He's putting together some. Oh, this is going to be wild. Okay, guitar has come out from Nichol Robertson. He's plugging in. I just saw the Dylan biopic, man. When he plugged in, those folkies were mad. That was quite a scene in Complete Unknown here. Just watched that on the weekend. So, okay, Nichol is that's him here in the background. He's got the guitar. All right, and here, let's see here. The keyboard is big. That's a big keyboard, Michael. You okay? Okay.
Not that big.
Well, it's all relative. It's not that big. It's a relative thing. Size is not everything here. So Cleve is plugging them in. I have an Can you plug in there? Oh, there's one. I don't know if it'll reach. There's one by the washing machine, but you got a extension cord. Okay. So I wish I could throw a camera on this, but we got here. Let me take a quick photo here. Getting some power for these gentlemen. Like I have. Okay. There is an extension cord outlet if you need. Oh, you got your own. Okay. He came prepared. Michael Boguski learned that at Michael Power. Always come prepared here. I was going to give him some power, and I realized, oh yeah, I know his brother from Michael Power here. So Cleave is now sitting down. Percussion. You got a drum there. That's a drum, Cleave. Okay. All right. If this comes together, guys.
Look at this.
So is that a washboard? What is that?
That's a Stompin' Tom's.
Oh, Stompin' Tom.
board.
Hey, shout out to Banjo Dunk here.
Influenced by. It's not like he was have a piece of plywood, but
We need Stompin' Tom. He was a proud Canadian. We need this guy.
he lived in Mimico for
Did he?
years. I think in Mimico or somewhere around here in a basement.
Stompin' Tom Connors lived in a basement in Mimico, according to Cleave Anderson. That's a mind blow right there. He should have lived in New
I hope I'm
Toronto.
not mistaken.
Well,
but,
you know who knows. Okay, so I got to shout out Banjo Dunk, Duncan Fremlin. He plays banjo. He was friends with Stompin' Tom, keeping the legacy alive. I'll confirm that story with him, and I'll get back to you.
please do.
I'll get back to you here. Oh, wow. So once you guys are set up, I have to know where to put microphones. That's the one thing here. Okay.
Mimico, maybe long branch or something.
Well, you know, you can do what you wish with these three mics. That they swing around, they move. I don't know.
We're probably balancing the room fairly well.
And you got to stand, right, Nichol? Okay, you're.
Right?
Well, you know. Okay, well.
That's great.
Okay. Wow. Let me see. Okay. I gotta say, this is exciting to me that we didn't do what some shows would do, which is stop recording, set up, and start recording. Like, I love watching this cake get baked here. I love this. Live on the floor, we got keyboards. Crazy.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Somewhat like.
Yeah, good enough.
All right, you want to introduce the tune? Oh, let's talk about our release.
Yeah, April 18th, 19th?
Cameron House.
Cameron House. We're playing the back room. We've got a record coming out.
18 or 19?
Yeah. 18 or 19. It's a Friday.
Either one.
It's a Friday.
The Friday, if it's April 18th.
Friday 18th.
Friday the 18th, Cameron House.
6 to 8 p.m.
6 to 8 p.m. So Cameron House, 6 to 8 p.m. Awesome.
And this is a tune we wrote called Johnny Walker Blue. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready.
Amazing, honestly, guys. Wow. That sound came out of this basement. That's amazing to me that it sounded that good.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
The snare drum played with hands.
Great job, buddy.
Beautiful.
Cleave, Nichol, Michael, honestly, that was just unbelievable. Should I just play the extra and get out of here, or did you want to come back on the mics? You want to?
That's a good way to end it.
That's a good way to end it, honestly. So, speaking of the Rob Proust cover of Rosie and Gray, we're going to hear that on our way out. But I got to say, huge thank you to Michael Boguski. You played live on this show twice now. I'm going to start to get greedy and like ask for it every 6 months or so. Get some Boguski down here. So thank you for that. Making his Toronto Mike debut, Cleave Anderson. I've wanted to talk to you for a very long time. I just want to say thank you. I loved it. We got to do this again sometime.
Well, it was a
beer?
pleasure being here. Yes.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
And
a pleasure. Different. A pleasure's the wrong word.
no, it's just greater than a pleasure. Greater than a pleasure. And Nichol Robertson, what an absolute pleasure it was to meet you, Mimical guy.
Thank you.
See you on the trail. Thanks so much. And that brings us to the end of our 1,644th show. That was just incredible. I loved that so damn much. That's why Toronto Mike exists, for moments like that. Unbelievable. Go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. I'm active on Blue Sky at torontomike.com, but I'm all over the place. Find me, follow me, and find out who the hell is visiting the basement. Much love to all who made this possible. That is Great Lakes Brewery, Palma Pasta. They're feeding us at TMLX 18, by the way, June 26, 6 to 9 p.m. at Great Lakes Brewery here in Southern Etobicoke. RecycleMyElectronics.ca, Building Toronto Skyline, and Ridley Funeral Home. My next guest on Toronto Mike's. That's okay, Cleve. I'll pick that up. Cleve is dropping everything. Don't worry about it. We'll fix it. My next guest on Toronto Mic'd is Andy Wilson. He's the morning show host on Zoomer Radio. I got to tell Andy all about West of Jane. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go, Andy, Zoomer needs to play West of Jane. Make it happen. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you then. You know what? The mic's live still. Here,
Yeah. I think when I was 16 or 17, I wrote that for a Michael Power St. Joseph music theater production. I think it was we were done a theater version of the show Get Smart from the 60s. Remember Get Smart?
Of course.
So
Agent 99.
Yeah, three of us were sitting around. We all have to contribute a tune. So Nichol had one called Three Wrongs Don't Make a Right. Cleve had a great one called The Frog and the Whale. And I'm like, I got this great tune. It was kind of written for a 60s kind of theme song television show. So that's
the origin
what
story.
John Walker Blue is.
Love it.
It's
You know
really
what I
good.
say? Agent 99 gets thumbs up. Number 99, thumbs down. Okay. See you all
Yeah, right.
Friday.
Still